Did you ever read the novel Middlemarch? The, the main character in it is called Dorothea Brooke, and she's a beautiful young woman, and she has a great soul, and she has big, generous plans, and she likes to spend her spare time in a very similar way to how I like to spend my spare time, right? Designing cottages for the tenants, right? She wants to put the tenants in much flashier, much more upstanding, much more respectable cottages. And is there anything that's so satisfying for the soul and for the spirit, for the neshama, than designing cottages for one's down on their luck tenants? And a man who's trying to romance her, he pretends to have great interest in her cottages. In fact, he even makes plans to put them into effect. And then she's sorely disappointed that he was just doing it to attract her romantic favors. Good old cottages. What a wonderful thing it is to design cottages. Anyway, I noticed a lot of upper middle class men that I know fund interesting diversions, maybe even exciting or rewarding or fulfilling diversions for their wives so that they can feel independent, right? They get to feel independent because their husband subsidizes their cafe, their restaurant, their yoga teaching, their novel writing, their professorship, their Alexander Technique class. They're working as an activist or as a rabbi or a human rights scholar or a specialist in international humanitarian law. So these upper middle class men understand happy wife, happy life, and they have the means to subsidize wives. And so they provide for their wives the money that's necessary so that they have an interesting diversion aside from looking after the kids and looking after the husband. She gets to have her own independent identity with her own jewelry design business, or maybe she's working on becoming a thought leader. Maybe she has a little psychotherapy practice. And human rights activism and international humanitarian law is kind of like Dorothea Brooke designing cottages for the poor peasants. The whole focus of international humanitarian law and human rights is on helpless victims, right? There's nothing more exciting than helpless victims. And so thousands of women occupy themselves in these professions, in addition to thousands of very womanly men doing the equivalent of Dorothea Brooke designing cottages for poor helpless victim tenants. And it's just a major fact of life among the upper middle classes, maybe even the upper classes, where the wife gets this independent endeavor written off by her husband. And so she is engaged in this business, right? Not for making money, but for making meaning. Right? It's not for its bottom line value, but it's for the feels that it provides for her. It's the emotions that it evokes. It's the sense of purpose. It's status and prestige. So if she was interested in being useful, then she could find many volunteer activities. And this is what American women used to do, that they would, volunteer. They'd get together and take care of the poor and the homeless and the sick, and like highly worthy endeavors. But if she wants prestige and doesn't want to get her hands dirty and wants to feel like she's changing the world, but is engaged in something that's essentially a delusional and utopian enterprise that makes no difference in the real world, and it's not really going to get you into any trouble or difficulty in the real world, then human rights is the thing. All right, it's the equivalent of it's a higher IQ version of having your own jewelry design business. Right? You notice how many middle class, upper middle class, upper class women have their own jewelry design business or have their own businesses that make absolutely no sense from a business perspective, from a bottom line perspective, from making a concrete difference in this world perspective. But it's just like international humanitarian law or human rights. It's something you do for the feels. And men do the same thing, all right? This is absolutely nothing about which sex is superior, right? So Dorothea Brooke appropriately marries this old, feeble clergyman who has devoted his life to the key to all mythologies, which makes absolutely no scholarly contribution. It's a completely unnecessary, unwanted, unneeded, useless book to which he has devoted his entire life.